This is the second lecture of the series that we started. In the previous lecture, we discussed about the basics of the trend of the economy. Now, here we will understand. Now, we adopted the planning goals, which we discussed in the previous video. And we started the planned development of India. That was the approach, planned development of India. As we say, the planned development model is entirely based on Soviet Russia. Naturally, we had a mixed approach. So we can also say that even though we took a planned development in India, but we always say it is a mixed economy. And why do we say a mixed economy? If you remember what we discussed, that there was coexistence of public and the private players both. The private were restricted, their role was limited, they were controlled, regulated, they could do everything under the watch of the government. Public will play the major role. So public role, or we can say public sector, will play the major role, and public sector will be at the commanding height of the economy. And private players will be in a certain areas, limited areas, which we discussed. That was consumer goods industry, or there were some private players like Tata Steel which were already there, they were allowed to continue. So this was the mixed economy model. So even though mixed economy model, you can say if we have to categorize, you can say 90% was government and probably 10% was private, that's all. Government had major role to play and private had very limited role to play. And here also government will decide everything. So basically, in a typical model, if a socialism model or socialist model, what we do, that government tries its intervention and it increases intervention to the extent that private has limited role. So here the government was doing the main role of the economy. The idea behind developing the economy by the government was to ensure that India becomes a developed country. And at that time, we did not adopt the private mode of production or the capitalist mode of production as seen in most of the developed countries. The reason was, what was the reason? There were two reasons. No capitalism in this phase because of two reasons. First was, there were private players were incapable. In fact, private players themselves said in the Bombay plan that we are not ready to develop the country, government will have to take the lead role. And second was, the private players were profit driven. So these were two reasons. And India was ruled by a country which was capitalist in nature. So it was very natural that we will not follow the model which kind of exploited for us for 200 years. So naturally, mixed economy model which was based on socialism was a natural choice for the economic mode of production. So that is the reason why we chose this model, planned development. Now we'll go into the individual plan and we'll try to understand how the entire thing shaped up. The first plan started in 1951 to 56. The second plan started from 1956 to 61. The third plan started from 1961 to 66. Then the fourth plan. All these are plans. The fourth plan started from 1969 to 74. You can see here there was break for 3 years, there was no plan. Why? Because there was a planned holiday because of external factors like war and other reasons. Then the fifth plan from 1974 to 79. Then sixth plan from 1980 to 85, and then seventh plan 85 to So this was the approach that we had. Now if you say the entire phase, now remember the first goal, that was economic growth, and we achieved the average economic growth of around 4% for the entire period. Now this was very less. And why it was less? Because we envisaged that the planning model will give us better growth. So in this plan, I will not go to individual plan the target or what was target and what they achieved. But in a generic manner, if you try to see, the average growth was 4% in the entire period from 1951 to 1990. Now again, I will divide the entire phase, this phase, into two subcategories. That is from 1950 to 1980 and from 1980 to 1990. That means 5 plans here and 6th and 7th plan here. Here the growth rate, average growth rate India achieved was 3.5%. So India achieved a growth rate of 3.5% and this was also said as Hindu rate of growth. Now this was given by a very famous economist, Mr. Raj Krishna. Now, there is nothing Hindu about this growth rate. It typically means that Indian growth rate was unique in the world. While we were going, if you compare this phase, all the countries in the world, whether it is Africa or South Asia or Asian countries or South American countries, all these countries became independent during this phase. And the countries which survived, India was one of the famous countries which survived, in spite of the challenge that we had. We were only country who achieved very less growth. Even Pakistan had a growth rate of 6%. The South Asian economies like Thailand, South Korea, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, all of these countries, they achieved a very high growth rate of average 9%, 10%. But we achieved growth rate of 3.5%, and this we can say here also that Hindu growth rate was a criticism of economic growth model because we could not achieve the target that we had planned for us. Now here in this phase, we were able to improve the economy, and here we were able to optimize the economy. Also in a limited manner, private sector liberalization started, which means in a calibrated manner, government felt that we need to give more role to the private sector. Because here in this first 5 plan, it was a kind of accepted fact that government taking a major role in the economy, that the business of the government to do business probably is not the right approach. So in a regulated manner, government started reducing its role but in this government was in absolute control. Government was controlling the economy entirety. Private sector had a very limited role. In 7th plan, especially when Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister, we started liberalizing the economy, we started opening the economy. And in fact, you can say that this was a phase where we set the base for economic reforms which happened in 1991. So this was the Hindu rate of growth. But the point here is that one basic question here, what were the challenges? The target was much higher. On average, if you see the planning growth targets, so more than 5 to 6% was our growth targets. But we were able to achieve a mere 3.5%. And this was very less as comparison to the demands of a country like India, which needed to compete with the world, meet the growing needs of its own population. If you say India was its own shares of problem, high population growth, situation of low per capita income, and if you compare countries which were at similar level, whether it's Singapore or Thailand or Malaysia or Indonesia, all these countries are poor during the phase of 50s. But they were relatively more prosperous, higher per capita income. And we were at the lower end. So this was a moot question that was always asked, that why did not we perform so well? What was the reason? There have been people, the critics who criticize this phase. It says that government should have taken a more wiser decision by applying or maybe taking towards private sector. Reform which happened in 1991 could have been little earlier and things would have been much different. But let's understand, history is decided by what has happened. Mere speculation will not decide what could have been there. But let's analyze and try to see the picture during this phase. Now, if you say India could not achieve the targets, the 4 growth models. So I will talk about both. Remember, UPSC is always about having a balanced approach. We will not take a one-sided view. We'll try to get all the facts on the platter and we'll make a judicious judgment based on that idea. Now, there were positives and there were limitations. So there were positives and there were limitations. What were the positives? Try to understand the macro picture. What were the positives during this phase? When India followed a socialism model where government intervention role was higher and private sector role was limited. We followed an approach which was a mixed economy, which means government was at the commanding height, and especially public sector units, because in an economy, the production of goods and services, basic industries, everything was decided by the government. Government will take the lead role. The industrial policy during this phase, was heavily towards government, which means public sector. Now, let's talk about the positives. And if you talk about the positives, what are the positives? First positive is that India was base of industrialization. Got developed. We achieved self-sufficiency in certain sectors. A very good example is iron steel. Very good example is cement industries, fertilizers, power, irrigation. So this sector now saw massive growth. Then India also saw a phase of green revolution, which means the food production went up, and since the population was growing, we were able to meet the needs of the population as well. The Malthusian theory that we will study in the demography study, we will have a lecture on that. So, green revolution developed our capacity, it ensured food security of the nation. At the same time, there were premier institutions were developed. Series of IITs, IIMs, CSIRs, Center of Excellence Institutions, Indian Institute of Science, ISRO, Space Program, DRDO. So premier institutions, or they came into picture and they kind of developed our capacity as well. We also were able to develop export, base as well. Of course, to a limited manner, but yes, export base was developed. We were able to earn a lot of earnings. A lot of earning was made through. So we can say here is that earning also started. You can say positive, or let's say earnings in terms of forex, foreign currencies, through PSUs. So these are the positives. So we were able to achieve all these positives. India was able to sustain the country. We were more stronger as a nation. Economic growth, there were limitations. Economic growth might have challenges, but we attained the basics. The planned development, achieved, success. In areas of agriculture, few industries, in the areas of, apart from them, you can also say the areas of employment to an extent. So that was the approach. Now, these are the positives. Now we'll talk about the challenges that we witnessed during this phase. Now the limitations or challenges are huge. Challenges can be categorized into two main categories. One was the external sector challenge and internal challenges that country faced. Internal challenges, why? Because there were frequent situations like droughts, challenges like low profitability of PSUs, challenges like bureaucracy and red tape, challenges like there was government deficit. Here I am going to say the corruption part, the government deficit. Challenges like high subsidy burden, and all these factors somewhere impacted the capital formation, the wealth generation. Government had limited resources at its disposal, and the growth rate was also limited in manner. External factors, there were wars. Once, mainly one small war with Kashmir 1947-48. Then in with Pakistan, 1961, 65, and China, 65 and 71. China 1962. So this was 3 wars. There was, oil crisis in 1970s. Since oil was a limited resource in our country, so we had to import the oil, and oil price went up. So that impacted our approach because we had to import oil and oil prices were very high. So oil price was another factor. There were other factors. There was heavy debt or burden. So there were factors internal as well as external. Overall, both these factors, they impacted the economy. And how did they impact the economy? That we'll discuss in the next series of lecture. If you like the lecture, just like and subscribe it, and we will follow the series of lecture. Thank you very much.